My family did not forget to invite me to Christmas. They planned it without me, laughed about giving me the wrong date, and used the holiday to keep me away from the one house they were trying to sell behind my back. My name is Ellery Whitaker. I am 38, and I work as a senior structural engineer in Columbus, Ohio. I make a living finding hidden cracks before they bring down a bridge, but on December 3, 2024, the crack I found was inside my own family. My sister accidentally added me to their Christmas group chat, and buried inside 47 messages was one sentence from my brother Caleb that made my hands go cold. Closing is the 26th. Keep her clear until then. They thought I was just the daughter they could exclude from dinner. They forgot Grandma Nell had put my name on the deed. Chapter 1. The chat they never meant me to see. The night my sister accidentally added me to the Whitaker Christmas planning chat, I was sitting alone in a Hampton Inn near Easton, just outside Columbus, eating cold takeout from a cardboard box and trying to finish a bridge safety memo before my eyes gave out. It was December 3, 2024, and I had spent 11 hours reviewing load paths, corrosion notes, and repair schedules for an I-70 bridge retrofit that had already eaten through 3 weekends. My laptop was open on the small hotel desk. A half-empty cup of coffee sat beside a stack of marked-up drawings. My boots were still by the door, dusty from the site visit, and the room smelled like reheated noodles and printer paper. That was my life at 38. North Star Civil Design paid me well because I was careful. I was the woman they sent when a structure had too many chilled assumptions buried under fresh paint. I knew how to find the beam no one had inspected, the crack someone had called cosmetic, the number that did not match the drawing. I trusted records more than reassurance. Then my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. By the fourth vibration, I looked down, expecting a message from Owen Pritchard about the memo, or maybe from Priya, asking if I was still alive, under the bridge reports. Instead, I saw that Tessa Whitaker had added me to a group chat called Whitaker Christmas Plan. My younger sister was 29, a part-time dental assistant, and the kind of person who could smile while stepping backward out of a burning room. Before I could even tap the chat, a private message from her slid onto the screen. Oops, wrong chat, ignore that lol. That was the first thing that made my stomach tighten, not the mistake. The panic hiding under the little laugh at the end. I opened the group chat. There were 47 messages. The first few looked harmless. My mother, Marsha Lynn Whitaker, wanted to know who was bringing sweet potato casserole. My older brother Caleb asked if he needed to pick up wine. My father Harold responded with a thumbs up, like he always did when he wanted credit for participating, without actually making a decision. Tessa said, Mum wanted to use Grandma Nell's china this year because it looked good with red napkins. For maybe 10 seconds, I let myself believe it was just a normal family chat I had been left out of by accident. It hurt, but it was familiar hurt, the kind you learn to fold up and store somewhere behind your ribs. Then I kept reading. My mother wrote that they did not need an extra chair this year, because I probably would not make it anyway. Caleb replied, just tell her the 28th again. It worked last year. My father did not object. He sent a laughing face. Tessa wrote, what if she finds out? My mother answered, she won't. She never checks. I sat very still. The air conditioner under the window hummed. Somewhere down the hall, an ice machine dropped a load of cubes into its tray. My laptop screen dimmed, then brightened when I touched the mouse, and the bridge drawing came back like a thing from another life. Last Christmas came back with it. I had driven from Columbus to Cedar Glen, with a glass dish of scalloped potatoes wrapped in towels on the passenger seat, and a bottle of wine rolling gently in a gift bag. I remembered pulling up to my parents' house and seeing the wreath on the door, the porch light off, the driveway empty. I had stood there in my coat, with steam still trapped under the foil of the dish, calling my mother and trying not to feel ridiculous. When she finally answered, her voice had been soft and puzzled. Honey, I thought we told you. We did Christmas on the 25th this year. I apologized. That was the worst part. I stood on the porch like an uninvited delivery driver and apologized because I thought I had written down the wrong date. My mother told me to come by on the 28th for leftovers if I still wanted to see everyone. Caleb later joked that I was too busy with my fancy engineering life to keep track of family things. Harold said nothing. Tessa sent me a heart. Now, it was looking at the proof that none of it had been accidental. I scrolled back to the beginning and read every message again, slower this time. My family had not forgotten me. They had planned around me. That distinction mattered. Forgetting is careless. Planning is a choice. The strange thing was that I had never been absent when they needed me. When Harold had surgery, I drove 3 hours to move his truck, refill his prescriptions, and set up the recliner he insisted he did not need. When Marcia got overwhelmed by insurance paperwork, I filled out the forms she left on her kitchen table. When Tessa needed help with a lease, I read every clause before she signed. When Caleb's truck broke down, I found the part number before he even called the shop. And when Grandma Nell's porch started sagging in 2019, I paid the repair deposit because everyone else said they would get around to it. They did not. I did. That was my assigned place in the Whitaker family. Useful, reliable, available in emergencies, invisible at tables. I had spent years telling myself that being needed was close enough to being loved. Grandma Nell was the only person who ever told me the truth about that. She used to say, being useful was not the same as being loved. I thought she meant it gently. That night, in that hotel room, I finally heard the warning in it. My phone buzzed again. Tessa had sent another private message. Seriously, don't make this weird. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because she had somehow managed to turn their secret into my potential overreaction, before I had even responded. I went back to the group chat. That was when I saw Caleb's message. Closing is the 26th. Keep her clear until then. I stared at that sentence so long the words stopped looking like words. Closing, not dinner, not Christmas, not family photos. Closing. I worked with documents for a living. Not real estate documents, but the principle was the same. When one term did not belong, it usually carried the load the rest of the page was trying to hide. 2 messages later, my mother mentioned Kendra Hale from Buckeye Ridge Realty. She wrote that the buyer wanted a walk-through Christmas afternoon, and that the house needed to be empty by 1. My throat tightened. The house. There was only one house they could mean. 408 Sycamore Lane. Grandma Nell's house. The pale yellow house with the wraparound porch, and the old maple tree in the backyard. The house where I had slept in the attic room after my freshman year of college, because I could not afford the dorm deposit. The house where Grandma Nell made coffee every morning before I studied, setting the mug down beside me without asking whether I deserved kindness that day. The house where I never had to perform usefulness to be allowed inside. After Grandma Nell died in August 2021, my mother said everything had been handled. That was the phrase she used for things she did not want questioned. Handled. Like grief was a file folder. Like the house was a casserole dish to be assigned after church. I had believed her because I was tired. Because Grandma Nell was gone. Because part of me had been trained to accept that if the family made a decision without me, I must have been too busy, too distant, too serious, too something to deserve a voice. But now Caleb was talking about a closing. My mother was talking about a realtor. A buyer wanted to walk through on Christmas afternoon, and I was supposed to be kept clear until the 26th. I did not call my mother. I did not call Caleb. I did not answer Tessa. Instead, I started taking screenshots. One by one, I captured all 47 messages, from the casserole planning to the wrong date joke to the line about closing. I saved Tessa's private messages too. I emailed them to myself. Then I uploaded them into a folder only I could access. That may sound cold, but I was not cold. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to set the phone down twice. My face felt hot. My chest hurt in a quiet, humiliating way I hated, But I had learned in engineering that panic does not stabilize anything. Evidence does. After I finished, I placed the phone beside the bridge drawings and looked at the phrase I had circled earlier in my report, hidden load transfer. I had written it about steel and concrete, but it fit my family better than I wanted it to. For years, they had transferred weight onto me when they needed help, then removed me from the picture when it was time to gather, smile, and call themselves whole. This time, something under that structure had cracked. I opened my laptop again. The county recorder's website was easy to find, if you knew what to search for. And I knew how to search for records. No one expected me to read. I typed Licking County Recorder's office property search into the browser. Then I stopped, my finger hovering above the Enter key, because suddenly I understood that whatever I found next was going to change the shape of my family forever. Chapter 2. The key Grandma Nell gave me wasn't just a key. I pressed Enter before I could talk myself out of it. The Licking County Recorder's office website loaded like it had been built by someone who still trusted dial-up. Grey boxes, tiny blue links, a search bar that looked older than my first laptop. I typed 418 Sycamore Lane, Cedar Glen, Ohio, and clicked search. While the page spun, I reached into my bag for my keys. There were too many on that ring. My apartment key, office key, a small key to the lockbox North Star used for field equipment, a useless little luggage key I kept forgetting to throw away. But one key was different. Heavy brass, worn smooth at the edges, darker near the teeth from years of being touched. Grandma Nell's key. She gave it to me on Thanksgiving, in 2017, right after dinner, while everyone else was busy acting like the holiday had gone well. Caleb was stretched across the couch, watching football with one shoe off. Tessa was taking pictures of pie slices for Instagram. My father had fallen asleep in a recliner, with the television reflecting blue across his glasses. My mother was stacking plates, with that tight, little smile she wore when she wanted people to notice how much work she had done. Grandma Nell called me into the kitchen and pressed the brass key into my palm. She told me it was my home whenever I needed one. I remembered the weight of it more than the words. I remembered looking down at that key and feeling a warmth so sudden it embarrassed me. In my family, kindness usually came with a task attached. Grandma Nell's kindness never did. A week later, she asked me to drive to Cedar Glen again. I was 31 then, already a licensed professional engineer, old enough to sign bridge reports and take responsibility for load ratings that affected thousands of drivers, yet still young enough to shrink a little when my mother said I was making things harder than they needed to be. Grandma Nell said she had an errand on Main Street and wanted me with her. I thought it was a doctor form or maybe a bank matter. She had been moving slower that year, and I had started pretending not to notice how often she sat down between chores. The office was small, wedged between a tax preparer and a barber shop. A bell rang when we opened the door. The woman behind the desk knew Grandma Nell by name. There were papers ready. I remember seeing my name printed on one page, Maris Ellery Whitaker, and feeling confused but touched. Grandma Nell said she wanted me on the house paperwork. I asked if she was sure. She looked at me like the question made her sad. She said a key could be taken, but a recorded paper could not. I signed where the notary pointed. I understood that I was signing something important, but I did not understand the full architecture of it. I thought Grandma Nell was giving me a symbolic right to come home, a way of saying that even if my parents forgot to invite me, Sycamore Lane would not forget me. I did not understand that she had made me a legal co-owner of the house. That was the part I had buried under grief, work, and the old habit of assuming my mother understood family business better than I did. After Grandma Nell died in August 2021, Marcia told everyone that the estate had been handled. That was her word, handled. She used it for anything she wanted locked away, before anyone asked a second question. The house stayed quiet. The property tax notices never came to me. No one asked me to sign anything. No one invited me to talk about repairs or insurance. or whether we should keep it. So I let myself believe the key was all Grandma Nell had meant to leave me. The search results finally appeared. My breath caught before I even opened the first document. There were records going back decades. A deed from when my grandparents bought the house. An old mortgage. A satisfaction of mortgage. Recorded in 2012, and then another entry dated June 14, 2017 quitclaim deed. I clicked the scan. The image loaded in uneven strips, black text on white paper, official stamps, margins, a notary seal. I leaned toward the screen, and for a moment, the hotel room seemed to narrow, until there was nothing but that document and my own name. Grantor, Eleanor Nell Whitaker. Grantees, Marsha Lynn Whitaker and Maris Ellery Whitaker, tenants in common. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, because my brain kept trying to soften what my eyes were seeing. There it was. Not in a family chat, not in a Christmas photo, not on a holiday card where I had been cropped out by omission. My name was on the deed. I searched for any later release. Nothing. I searched for another transfer. Nothing. No court order. No signed waiver. No document saying I had given up my interest. No paper that erased me. From 418 Sycamore Lane. My family had spent years treating me like an optional guest in Grandma Nell's house. But the county record disagreed. I sat back and covered my mouth with one hand. The feeling was not triumph. Not yet. It was something quieter and heavier. It was the strange ache of realizing someone had protected you long before you understood you needed protection. I clicked into the tax records next, the mailing address after. Grandma Nell's death had first remained at Sycamore Lane, then changed to my mother's address in Cedar Glen. That answered the question that would have haunted me later. Why had I never received a bill, a notice, any clue that I was still tied to the house? Because the paper trail had been pointed toward Marsha. She had controlled the mail, the updates, the silence. I thought about my mother telling me after the funeral that there was nothing for me to worry about. She had hugged me with one arm in Grandma Nell's kitchen, her other hand already sorting sympathy cards into piles. She said everything was handled. I had believed her because grief makes you tired, and because I had been trained since childhood to treat my mother's certainty as if it were proof. Grandma Nell had known better. When I was 10, Caleb had Little League 3 nights a week, and Harold never missed a game. Tessa had dance recitals and new shoes and curls sprayed stiff enough to survive a thunderstorm. I had the public library. I rode my bike there after school, backpack bouncing, because the librarians did not ask why no one picked me up. Grandma Nell noticed. She noticed everything people hoped would stay small. She saved me the last slice of peach pie when Caleb ate too. She remembered that I hated marshmallows on sweet potatoes. She bought me graph paper after I told her I liked drawing houses with impossible staircases. And one summer morning, when I was old enough to understand shame, but not old enough to name it, she told me that being useful was not the same as being loved. I had spent most of my life trying to prove her wrong. The folder was still in my email, buried under years of receipts and project files. Nell. I had not opened it in a long time. Inside were old messages from her, scanned recipes, a photo of the maple tree in October, and one letter she had sent me after the signing in 2017. I opened it. Her handwriting filled the page, slanted and firm. She wrote that a house was not only boards and shingles, it was a place where a person could breathe without being voted in or out. She wrote that she wanted me to have a place no one could vote me out of. That was when I stopped moving. I did not sob. I did not make a sound. I just sat in that hotel chair, with the bridge memo still open behind the browser window, and let the truth settle. Grandma Nell had seen the shape of my family before I did. Maybe she had not known the exact day, the exact group chat, the exact realtor, or the exact buyer. But she knew enough to put my name somewhere. Marsha could not delete it. The next morning, I called an attorney. Vivian Cross at Cross & Adler LLP in Columbus was recommended through a colleague who had used her for a property dispute after a divorce. Vivian's voice was calm in a way that made me trust her immediately. Not warm, exactly. Precise. I liked precise. I explained the group chat, the closing date, the realtor, the deed, and the fact that no one had contacted me about a sale. I sent her the scanned deed while we were still on the phone. She took several minutes to read it. When she came back, she said that if the deed was recorded as it appeared, and there was no later release, I had an ownership interest as a tenant in common. She said a clean sale would require my valid signature through the proper closing process, usually with escrow signing, or a notarized deed transfer. She said my mother could not simply sell the whole property around me because she was tired of asking. If they wanted to force a sale without my agreement, they would be looking at a partition action, and that would be public, slow, and expensive. For the first time since I had seen the group chat, I exhaled fully. Vivian asked whether anyone had sent me documents to sign. I was about to say no, then my inbox refreshed. A new email from Marcia appeared at the top of the screen. The subject line read, "Quick Estate Cleanup Docs. Need your signature before Christmas." The attachment was named Sycamore Estate Cleanup Packet. I opened it with Vivian still on the line. The first page loaded, then the second, then the third. Yellow tabs marked "Sign Here" appeared down the side of the document, neat and bright and impossible to miss. The handwriting on them was small, round, and familiar. It looked like Tessa's. Chapter 3. The Business Debt Behind Christmas Dinner. For a second, the room went perfectly quiet around me. Vivian was still on the phone, but I had stopped hearing her. The little yellow tabs down the side of the document looked too neat, too cheerful, too domestic for what they were asking me to do. My sister had used that same rounded handwriting on birthday cards, grocery lists, and labels for my mother's church bake sale containers. Seeing it on a deed packet felt like finding a fingerprint on a locked door. "Maris, don't sign anything." Vivian's voice cut through the silence. "I'm not going to." "Good. Save a copy exactly as received. Don't edit the file. Don't reply to your mother. Forward it to me." I did what she said. My hands were steadier now, not because I was calm, but because the part of me that handled emergencies had taken over. I downloaded the PDF, saved it under a new name with the date, uploaded it to my cloud drive, then forwarded the original email to Vivian. I also took screenshots of the email header, the attachment name, and the first page with the yellow signature tabs visible. The file was called Estate Cleanup, but by page 2, the lie was already obvious. It was not cleanup. It was a pre-closing deed packet. There was a draft deed transfer from Marcia Lynn Whitaker and Maris Ellery Whitaker to Martin Doyle, the buyer. There were escrow instructions. There were signature pages. There were notary instructions. There was a settlement statement with a sale price of $268,000 and a closing date of December 26, 2024. 2 days after Christmas. I scrolled slowly, forcing myself to read every line instead of reacting to the rage rising in my throat. Vivian stayed quiet, letting me process. Then I found the disbursement schedule. After estimated closing costs, every dollar of the net proceeds was listed to be wired to Marcia Lynn Whitaker. Not half, not an escrow hold, not a note that my ownership interest would be handled separately. 100% to my mother. I stared at that page until the numbers blurred. They had not just planned Christmas without me. They had not just planned to sell Grandma Nell's house without telling me. They had planned to make me sign away my ownership interest for nothing, under a file name that made it sound like routine estate paperwork. "Vivian, I'm here. The money all goes to my mother." There was a pause, not long, but enough for me to know she understood the weight of it. "Send me that page separately too." I did. My phone buzzed while I was still on the call. A text from Marcia appeared across the top of my screen. "Honey, did you see the paperwork? It's just a few cleanup signatures. Need it before Christmas if possible." "Just a few cleanup signatures," I almost answered. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, and for one sharp second, I wanted to ask her how long she had practiced that sentence. But I could hear Grandma Nell's voice in my memory, low and steady, telling me not every door deserved to be opened just because someone knocked. So I put the phone face down, Vivian said. From now on, anything about the house comes through me. If they call, you don't have to answer. If they text, save it. If they pressure you to sign quickly, save that too. Are they breaking the law? Right now, they're trying to get you to sign. That's not the same as forging you, but the way this was presented matters. If they submit anything false or try to close without you, that changes the conversation. That was Vivian's way. No drama, no exaggeration. Just clean edges. After we hung up, I sat at the hotel desk with the PDF open and the bridge memo minimized behind it. Outside, traffic moved along the road near the hotel, headlights sliding across the curtains. Somewhere, people were buying gifts, making dinner plans, complaining about airports. My family was preparing a Christmas table with no placed for me, while asking me to hand them the house that had been the only place I ever felt chosen. At 7:42 that night, Tessa called. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. Hey, she said too brightly. Tessa. The brightness cracked. Mom said you got the email. I did. It's not a big deal. She said it's just estate stuff. You know how she gets when paperwork piles up. I looked at the page where my mother's bank account was listed for the entire disbursement. Is Caleb's shop in trouble? Silence, not surprise, not confusion. Just silence. Tessa. She breathed out, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Mom is really stressed. That wasn't what I asked. Caleb's had a bad year. How bad? Another pause. I heard something clink on her end, maybe a glass set down too hard. Route 9 Collision lost 2 fleet contracts. He's behind on payroll. First County Bank sent a notice. How much? Maris, I don't know all the details. How much, Tessa? She whispered it like the number itself might tell on her. About 118,000. I closed my eyes. And Mom co-signed. She didn't think it would get this bad. Of course she did not. Caleb's problems were always weather in my family. Something that happened to him. My problems were personality. Something I caused by being too serious, too independent, too hard to include. When is the deadline? End of the month. December 31st, I think. Mom said if the house closed on the 26th, everything could be fixed before the bank pushed harder. Everything, by everything, she meant Caleb's business, Marsha's credit, Harold's peace, the family image, the story they told at church, everything except me. And you knew. Tessa did not answer. You put the tabs on the packet. Her voice broke. Mom asked me to help. She said you wouldn't care, because you don't live there. And you believed her? I thought if I stayed quiet, it wouldn't count as choosing. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Maybe because it sounded honest. Maybe because it was exactly the kind of lie people tell themselves when they want the benefits of loyalty, without the guilt of betrayal. It counted, I said. She started crying then, quietly, the way she cried when she wanted someone else to end the conflict for her. I had done that for her most of our lives. I did not do it that night. I'm not discussing the house with you anymore. If Mom has something to say, she can go through my attorney.
Your attorney?
Yes, Maris, please don't blow this up before Christmas. I looked at the group chat still sitting in my screenshots folder. 47 messages. The wrong date, the realtor, the closing. You all did that already. I ended the call. The next morning, Vivian sent a notice of ownership interest to Kendra Hale at Buckeye Ridge Realty and Dana Ruiz at Buckeye Title and Escrow. She copied me on the email. The language was professional, clean, and impossible to soften. It attached the 2017 recorded quitclaim deed and stated that I was a recorded co-owner of 418 Sycamore Lane, that I had not released my ownership interest, and that no sale of the full property should proceed without my valid participation or a court order. For the first time, the facts were moving through channels my family could not control. By afternoon, Dana Ruiz called Vivian back. Vivian summarized it for me afterward. Final title search had flagged my name. Dana had opened a title objection. The title company could not clear the transaction as structured. Kendra had been told by my mother, that Marcia had authority to sell a family property. But the recorded deed said otherwise. They can't close cleanly without you, Vivian said. What happens now? Now the realtor informs your mother that there's a problem. The buyer's side will want clean title. If your mother wants to force a sale, she needs a legal process. Not a Christmas ambush. That should have made me feel victorious. It did not. It made me tired, because while Vivian was placing careful legal barriers around the house, my actual life still existed. Owen needed the bridge memo. North Star needed my revisions. The city wanted the lane schedule before the holiday break. So I worked until nearly midnight, checking load calculations while my mother texted me every hour. Honey, did you sign yet? It's just cleanup. Don't make me chase you before Christmas. I did not answer. Prior Nair messaged me around 11:15. Still buried in bridge hell? Something like that. You okay? I stared at the question longer than I should have. No. A minute passed before she replied. You don't have to explain, but don't let anyone turn your silence into permission. I read that twice. The next evening, Marcia posted a photo on Facebook. I should not have looked. I knew that. But I did. The picture showed Grandma Nell's china, laid out on a red table runner, candles in the center. The good crystal glasses catching warm light from the chandelier. The caption read, "Nothing matters more than family gathered under one roof." There were 4 place settings, 4 chairs. No empty space where a 5th could have been. I sat in the blue light of my laptop, looking at the table where I had been erased. Then at the message Vivian had just sent me. Buckeye title has formally flagged the ownership issue. Closing is currently on hold pending resolution. I looked back at my mother's perfect Christmas table. Then I looked at the title objection. For the first time in 3 days, my hands stopped shaking. The bomb was exactly where it needed to be. Now all I had to do was wait for Christmas. Chapter 4, Merry Christmas. Your realtor will explain the rest. By Christmas Eve, the waiting had become its own kind of noise. I sent the bridge safety memo to Owen Pritchard at 4:17 in the afternoon. After reading the same paragraph 6 times to make sure, I had not let my family bleed into the work. The report was clean. The load notes were clear. The city would get its lane schedule before the holiday break. Owen replied 20 minutes later, with a short thank you, and a line about trying to get some rest. I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet of my Columbus apartment, listening to the heat click through the vents. For the first time in 3 weeks, there was nothing urgent in front of me that belonged to North Star Civil Design. No bridge memo, no inspection photos, no calculation revisions. Just my phone on the coffee table, Grandma Nell's brass key beside it, and the printed copy of her letter folded carefully under my palm. A place no one could vote you out of. I read that line again. My family had been voting me out for years, quietly, politely, with wrong dates and locked doors, and cheerful explanations. But Grandma Nell had given me something they could not move with a group chat. The Whitaker Christmas plan chat kept lighting up. Tessa had never removed me. Maybe she was too scared to touch anything after our call. Maybe no one realized I was still seeing every message. Or maybe they had gotten so used to me being invisible that even my name at the top of the chat did not register as a risk. Marcia wrote that the china needed to be hand-washed before dinner. Caleb replied that the buyer wanted the place empty. By 1 after lunch, Harold asked whether someone needed to clear the garage. Then Caleb sent the message that made my shoulders tighten. Just keep the place clear by 1. If this goes sideways, the bank's not waiting. Marcia answered almost immediately. Maris still thinks we're doing the 28th. Nobody mention her. Nobody mention her. I stared at those words longer than I should have. There are sentences that do not shout, but still break something. That one did, not because it surprised me, because it was so casual. Like I was a spill on the floor no one wanted guests to see. I set the phone down and picked up Grandma Nell's key. It was warm from my hand within seconds. I remembered the kitchen at Sycamore Lane, the yellow light over the sink, Grandma Nell's fingers closing mine around that key. Back then, I thought she was giving me permission to come home. Now I understood she had been giving me proof that I had never needed permission from them. That night, I slept badly. I kept waking up before dawn, sure my phone had rung. It had not. My mother was still pretending the trap was ordinary. Caleb was still pretending the sale would save him. Tessa was still pretending silence could be neutral. Harold was still pretending not choosing a side was different from choosing theirs. On Christmas morning, I made coffee at 7:06 and did not turn on the tree lights. I had a small tree in the corner of my living room, 3 feet tall, with white bulbs and 2 ornaments from Grandma Nell. One was a tiny wooden house. The other was a brass star she had bought from a church craft sale when I was 12. At 8:31, the group chat came alive again. Marcia sent a photo of the dining table, 4 place settings, 4 wine glasses, 4 folded napkins, Grandma Nell's china gleaming under the chandelier, a red and green centerpiece running down the middle like something from a magazine. Under the picture, my mother wrote, "Merry Christmas from our table to yours." I did not touch the screen. A few minutes later, Caleb posted a photo from the living room at 418 Sycamore Lane. The room had been staged. Grandma Nell's old blue armchair was gone. The bookshelf had been thinned out. A beige sofa sat where she used to drink tea and watch the evening news. The house looked clean, bright, and ready for someone else's life. It did not look like the place that had held me when my own family would not. Tessa wrote, "Looks perfect." Harold sent a thumbs up. I looked at the clock, 9:48. I opened the chat and typed one sentence. "Merry Christmas. Your realtor will explain the rest." I did not attach the deed. I did not mention the settlement statement. I did not call them liars. I did not ask why there were only 4 plates. I sent the message and put the phone face down on the coffee table. For almost 2 full minutes, nothing happened. No bubbles, no replies, no typing. The silence felt so complete. I could hear the hum of my refrigerator from the kitchen. Then Caleb called. I watched his name fill the screen and let it ring. Then Marcia called, then Harold, then Caleb again. A text from Tessa appeared. "What did you do?" I did not answer. The calls stacked up so quickly, the phone seemed to vibrate without stopping. In the first hour, there were 53 missed calls and 36 texts and voicemails. Caleb called from his cell, then from what looked like the shop number. Marcia left 3 messages that began sweet and ended sharp. Harold sent 2 texts, both saying, "Call your mother." Tessa sent 1 message after another, each one more frightened than the last. "Maris, please. Mom is freaking out. Caleb is calling Kendra. What did the realtor tell you?" That was the first honest question any of them had asked. Vivian called at 11:12. I answered her. "Are you safe?" "Yes, good. Don't engage unless you want to." Kendra has spoken to Dana at Buckeye Title. The buyer's side has been notified that the title is clouded because a recorded co-owner was not included. What does that mean for tomorrow? It means they cannot close cleanly as structured. Martin Doyle's lender will not approve without clear title. Evan Doyle wants either your valid signature, a court order, or a resolved title issue before closing, none of which they have. Correct. I closed my eyes. From what Vivian later told me, Cedar Glen had gone very quiet after my message, then very loud. Caleb had called Kendra Hale before the Christmas ham was even out of the oven. Kendra had explained that Buckeye Title and Escrow had flagged a recorded co-owner who had not authorized the transaction. Caleb had apparently said that was impossible. Dana Ruiz had said the deed was not impossible, it was recorded. At the dining table, Marcia tried to tell everyone I was overreacting. "She's making paperwork into a weapon," my mother said in one voicemail, her voice trembling with anger disguised as hurt. "This is a family matter." By noon, Caleb had stopped disguising anything. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said in a voicemail. "I have employees depending on me. Mom's credit is on the line. You don't even live in that house." That was when I finally answered one call. Marcia's name flashed across the screen again, and I picked up before I could think better of it. "Maris, thank God," she said. "Honey, This is just paperwork. You don't even live there. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Then why did you need me to sign it without reading it? A pause. We were going to explain after Christmas. Before or after the closing statement sent 100% of the proceeds to your account. She said nothing. Then Caleb's voice came through, closer to the phone, harsher. You don't need the money. You have your engineering job. I have people depending on me. Grandma Nell didn't put my name on that deed because I needed money. Then why? Because she knew one day you would decide I didn't count. The line went quiet except for breathing. Then Harold spoke, low and tired. Maris, please. It's Christmas. That one hurt more than Caleb yelling. You remembered Christmas when you needed my signature, not when you set the table. No one answered. I ended the call. After that, Vivian sent a formal email stating that all communication about 418 Sycamore Lane needed to go through council. I muted the group chat but did not block it. Evidence had a way of continuing to arrive when people thought emotion gave them permission to speak. That evening, a voicemail from Tessa appeared. Her voice was small and wet with crying. I'm sorry. I put the tabs on the packet. Mum said it was just to make it easier for you. She said you always sign what helps the family. I didn't think it would be like this. Please don't hate me. I listened to it twice, then I saved it. I did not call her back. The next morning, December 26, I woke before sunrise to a grey Columbus sky and a phone that had finally stopped shaking itself across the nightstand. At 8:04, Vivian texted me. The closing did not happen. Chapter 5, the house sold, but not the way they planned. By the time I read Vivian's text, I had expected relief to come first. It did not. What came first was stillness. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in both hands, staring at those 5 words until they stopped looking like a legal update and started looking like a door closing somewhere far away. Not the door at 418 Sycamore Lane. Not yet. This was the door on the version of my family, where I kept making excuses because explanations were easier than boundaries. Martin Doyle did not pull out immediately. Vivian told me later that he still wanted the house. He was a retired firefighter, and he had planned to buy Sycamore Lane for his daughter, who was recently divorced, and her little boy. He liked the porch. He liked the maple tree. He liked that the elementary school was only 6 minutes away. But liking a house does not clear a title. Evan Doyle, his buyer's agent, told Kendra Hale that Martin's lender would not move forward, with a recorded co-owner missing from the transaction. Dana Ruiz, at Buckeye Title and Escrow, would not clear the file without my valid signature, a court order, or a resolved ownership agreement. Marcia had none of those things. She had a Christmas table, a buyer waiting for clean paperwork, and a daughter she had spent years underestimating. On December 29, Martin withdrew his offer. That was the first real consequence, not a family argument. Not a ruined holiday mood. A real buyer gone, a closing dead, and a plan that could not be rescued by my mother's tone. Caleb texted me that afternoon. Hope you're proud. I looked at the message for a long time, then forwarded it to Vivian. I did not answer him. There was nothing I could say that would make Caleb understand that his business failing did not turn my ownership into a family emergency fund. In early January, First County Bank sent the formal default notice. Renee Collier's name was on the letter. Caleb's loan was behind, and because Marcia had co-signed, her credit and financial standing were now tied to his collapse. In a way she could no longer hide behind casserole dishes and church smiles. That was when Marcia changed strategies. If she could not control the paperwork, she would control the story. She told people at church that I had blocked the sale of a family home during Christmas. She told Lorraine Hayes, my aunt and one of the women who seemed to run half of Cedar Glen by prayer chain, that Caleb was about to lose his business because I wanted to punish my mother. She posted something vague on Facebook about children who forget where they came from, and 3 women I had known since childhood left little hearts under it. Lorraine texted me 2 days later, "Your mother is heartbroken." Family property should help family. I typed a response that was much too long. I wrote about the group chat, the wrong date, the settlement statement, the 4 place settings, Tessa's handwriting, the way my mother had called theft cleanup, because she expected me not to read. Then I deleted all of it. I asked Vivian what I could share. She told me to send only what was necessary. So I sent Lorraine one cropped page from the settlement statement, the part showing 100% of the net proceeds, wired to Marsha Lynn Whitaker. Lorraine never replied. That silence felt different from Harold's. Harold's silence had protected a lie. Lorraine's silence meant the lie had lost one witness. I did not sue them right away, and I know some people would have. Vivian explained the options clearly. What we had was a real estate dispute, a title problem, and a documented attempt to get me to sign away my interest under misleading language. If they forged my name, submitted false documents, or tried to close without me, we would escalate, but the fastest way to protect my rights was already working. The title objection stopped the sale. The legal notice forced them to acknowledge me. Mediation would either create a clean agreement or make it very clear who refused one. I was not trying to burn the house down. I was trying to stop them from stealing it, while calling me selfish for noticing. By March 2025, we were all in a mediation room in Columbus with Samuel Pike, a mediator who looked like he had spent 20 years listening to families confuse emotion with ownership. I sat beside Vivian. Across the table were Marsha, Harold, Caleb, and their attorney. Tessa did not come. She sent an email instead, admitting she had placed the signature tabs in the packet, and apologizing for not warning me sooner. Marsha opened with tears. She said Grandma Nell would be devastated to see us fighting over her home. She said family legacy mattered. She said Caleb was drowning, and I had chosen paperwork over blood. Samuel Pike folded his hands and said we were there to resolve a recorded ownership dispute, not decide who loved the house more. For the first time in months, my mother had no immediate answer. Vivian laid out the documents, the 2017 deed, the recorded ownership, the title objection, the packet, the disbursement schedule, the fact that I had never released my interest. Caleb leaned forward, jaw tight. She doesn't even live there, he said. Why does she get half? Vivian answered before I could. Ownership recorded in a deed is not based on who sleeps in the house. Then I looked at Harold. I had saved that question for him, because some betrayals do not come from the loudest person in the room. I asked him if he knew before Christmas. He looked down at his folded hands. I heard enough, he said. That answer was worse than no. Then your silence was a choice, I told him. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he looked old in a way I had never let myself see before. But pity did not change what he had done. He had watched my mother and Caleb build a plan around my absence. He had laughed in the chat. He had known enough, and he had stayed comfortable. At the end of that meeting, I gave them 2 options. We could sell the house properly, with both owners acknowledged, and split the net proceeds after closing costs, according to the recorded ownership. Or I could buy out Marsha's share based on an independent appraisal if she wanted out quickly. There was no third option where I signed away my rights, so Caleb could pretend his bad business decisions were my moral obligation. Marsha tried to bring it back to helping family. Samuel stopped her again. He said that was not a legal term. By April, the house was relisted with a different broker. Kendra was not involved, which was better for everyone. The new price was $259,500. The first buyer was gone, and the market had cooled just enough to make Marsha furious every time numbers came up. In May, the house sold. After closing costs, my share came to about $122,400. Marsha received her share too, though not the clean rescue fund she had planned. Caleb had to restructure Route 9 collision and paint, sell equipment, and cut staff. It was not dramatic. No one was dragged away in handcuffs. No one screamed in a courtroom. Their punishment was simpler than that. They had to live inside the consequences they tried to hand to me. Tessa met me once afterward at a coffee shop in Columbus. She looked younger than 29 that day, pale and tired, twisting a paper napkin until it tore. She said she was sorry. She said she should have told me. She said Mom made it hard to say no. I told her I did not hate her, but I would not pretend staying quiet was neutral. She cried. I let her. Then I left before the new owners took possession. I drove to 418 Sycamore Lane one last time. The house was empty. It smelled like fresh paint and wood polish. My footsteps sounded different without furniture to soften them. I walked through the living room, where Grandma Nell's blue chair used to sit, then up to the attic room where I had once studied with a fan in the window and a notebook full of impossible houses. I unfolded her letter one more time. A place no one could vote you out of. For a while, I thought that meant I had to keep the house. But standing there in the quiet, I understood what Grandma Nell had really given me. Not a building I was required to preserve. A choice no one else could make for me. I kept the old key tag with her handwriting and a copy of the brass key that no longer opened anything important. The working key I left on the kitchen windowsill for the new owners. The money went into an account I named Nell Fund. Not because money was the point. It never was. It was a foundation for a life where no one could guilt me, erase me, or slide a yellow tab onto a page and call it family. As I drove out of Cedar Glen, I passed the church, where my mother had posed beside Christmas wreaths, and told people family meant everything. My phone buzzed at the edge of town. It was Marcia. I hope someday you understand what you did to this family. I read it once, then set the phone face down on the passenger seat. For the first time in my life, I did not feel the need to explain myself to her. If you have ever been called selfish for setting a boundary, or told that family loyalty means handing over something that belongs to you, tell me what you would have done in my place. Would you have sold the house, kept it, or walked away from all of them sooner? Leave your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories about truth, boundaries, and the quiet kind of justice people never see coming.